Hello everyone, it's Michael from Chess Lifestyle, and for today's video, this is actually going to be a game review of the best game, at least in my opinion, from the Monster Night Chess Arenas. Now, the Monster Night Chess Arenas is an idea I had. In short, basically, I wanted to create a tournament and invite both my students and friends. In particular, I wanted my students to get more competitive experience, so that was the idea of it. And the Monster Night Arena ended up being a great success. We had this first Monster Night Arena, and 19 people turned up, which was really cool. And there's a little cash prize as well. So £10 for the winner, or if the student or friend is very dedicated to chess training, a Chess Mood membership for 1 month could be won as well. So this was the idea. It was going to be no arena streaks, no berserking, but just 5 minutes plus 1 second to move for the tournament. And I was very, very curious to see how it went because I had students of all levels, friends of all levels. I had a rating cap of 2200 blitz just to make sure, the gap isn't too large. But in the end, what happened was actually I had 2 students of mine who were in first and second, which was not Olivier and Leon RLC8. And I think not Olivier was on 11 points and Leon RLC8 was on 10. And I think there were a bunch of people on 9 points as well. So this was going into the last game of the tournament. And this was the most important match because basically whoever wins this is the winner of the whole thing. So I wanted to review this game. And there's actually a lot of instructive moments that I think you guys can learn a lot from. So the game was Petrov. I'm going to skim over the opening very quickly. This is not Olivier's pet weapon. And the game continues. We get to quite a level position where actually Black manages to get some kind of slight advantage given White's crippled pawn structure. But we get this game where it's quite level. I think also I should mention that castling queenside practically was a very good idea to try and create some imbalances when going into this slightly worse position. And probably opposite coloured bishops is a good idea as well when you've got a slight weakness, because this weakness is probably not going to be felt as much given that there's still a lot of play to be had given the opposite bishops. So for anyone who doesn't know, actually, I should probably mention that when you play this kind of position, if you just have the bishop, it tends to be quite drawish. But with an extra pair of pieces, especially the rooks, generally you can get quite strong attacks because you end up having control of one color of the squares. And if you can coordinate your attack on that color, then your attack has a good chance to succeed. So I actually wanted to just get to this position here and discuss this for a moment. So in fact, not Olivier played f5. And here, this was actually, it wasn't a blunder, but at this moment, h6 really was, because this, allows way too much. And if you'd like, you can stop the video and try and find the best move here. So in fact, the strongest move to be played here is rook e7. And there's a few really important things here. So firstly, as I was saying earlier, when we have opposite colored bishops with a pair of rooks, as you can see, the bishop and rook coordinate brilliantly against this g7 pawn, and Black's light squared bishop can do nothing about it. This rook is very passive, so suddenly White is completely winning here. Now, another thing to factor in as well is in rook endgames, you actually want to avoid putting all these pawns on the same line, because when you do, they become sitting ducks and easy targets, and these pawns will just drop off one by one. So that is often why, like in a position like this, we often want these pawns to be staggered, so that they're not all lost in one go to an aggressive rook. But of course, instead of h6, probably playing like rook d7. As you can see, the bishop covers the light squares, the rook covers the dark squares, and we're managing to hold this position. It's a little passive, but we basically can't allow this rook into the 7th. So In fact, white missed this and played h4. So yeah, basically neither player was completely understanding the importance of activity in this endgame, especially with these opposite colored bishops. I should note that both of the students are 10 years old, so that should probably be mentioned too. So, okay, the rook's traded, which tends to lead to a more drawish position. And actually, I'm curious who offered the trades of rook. So actually, it was not Olivier, and Leon accepted. Now, in fact, this is actually a really great move because here, if Leon declines the trade of rooks, well, black's rook is going to get active. And in any endgame, an active rook is very, very decisive in terms of who has got the advantage. And the thing is, if we trade, well, then the position becomes a lot more drawish. And given the tournament standings, Not Olivier was 1 point ahead. So Not Olivier would be happy with a draw, probably. So here started the very long grind of this opposite colored bishop endgame. And here, these few moves from Not Olivier were very, very impressive. Where basically, black realizes that the pawns are on dark squares and they need to be on light squares if we're going to make sure that they're not going to be weaknesses later in the game. So bishop h5, king d2, we capture once, and g6. And suddenly, these pawns are completely safe. So we've managed to strengthen our position. And the time situation was 2 minutes 30 for Not Olivier and 1 minute 30 for Leon. So the game continued. I would have definitely preferred to see this king get active as soon as possible because the bishop is a long-range piece, so it can get active very quick. The king, on the other hand, can't. So that should be the priority. We get this situation where black completely forgets to activate the king, which is quite careless. And definitely this position should be a draw. I mean, if anyone's got a chance, probably it's white, given the activity of the king. But in reality, if this king tries to stray too far away, then maybe black actually gets some progress with this pawn. So white would need to be careful here. Now, both sides just played a bunch of bishop moves. I think Not Olivier, you can see moving the bishop back and forth, was quite happy for a draw. And in fact, white trying to make some kind of progress ends up removing his king from his strong square and putting the king further away. Now, this is actually extremely risky, and black took their chance here with a really impressive move, b5. Now, at first glance, I was watching this game live. I didn't like the move because you completely ruin any chances of trying to break, which potentially might give you some kind of winning chance. But in fact, what you do is you actually fix this pawn on a3. And given that the king is now misplaced, black has a perfect route to enter the king. So this plan was really great. Now, at this moment, when the king strayed far enough, white tried to create some counterplay. Now, this is a really ballsy attempt because, I mean, probably you can just try and sit tight and defend this position. But this is trying to go for the win. So it's a very, very brave decision to play this. And actually, at this moment, had black found king c4, this is actually a winning move because after g7, the bishop defends from a central post. And there's a really, really nice move in this position. So actually, white manages to hold these pawns with this bishop. But at this moment, can you spot the winning move for black? There's only one move. So if you spotted the move h4, this is great. And this is actually something that's very, very useful to remember, which is these disconnected pawns, when they're sitting like this, the king can't actually capture either of the pawns. Because if the king captures this one runs. And it's worth noting as well, the pawns can't move themselves. Because if the pawn moves, the king can suddenly grab this one and then go back and grab the other one. But you can keep it static and hold that position. So now black has all the time in the world to bring this king over to this side and help one of these pawns through. Like, okay, you have to be a bit careful here and there. But this is a winning endgame. So this actually, this idea would have won. But instead, okay, the time situation was pretty frantic. Black defends the pawn in this way, which is very natural. And we reach this position where this should be a draw. Leon, unfortunately, had only 10 seconds. And with 10 seconds, and you get 1 second added on in this tournament, White panicked here. And White has to find this move, otherwise the position is definitely not over. So White has to find the move Bishop d6, defending this pawn, and it's worth noting that this one pawn can stop all three pawns. This pawn doesn't even have to be here. Well, actually maybe it does, because if this pawn wasn't here, no, okay, I mean, if the pawn and bishop aren't here, maybe you can like play a move where you sack one pawn and make another pass pawn, but of course when you sack, this pawn will run as well. So this pawn really is able to stop these three pawns when you have this kind of structure. And to make sure you don't lose this with bishop d6 is absolutely key. And I think when you have 10 seconds, obviously at this point with 10 seconds on the clock, it's very difficult to see all of this. But if you have a general understanding of what's going on in the position, earlier in the position when you had more time, then you've got more chance of being able to find this move. If you realize that this pawn is so important, stopping these pawns, then you start to realize, okay, I need to defend this pawn. Might make that little difference, but instead, White tries to activate his king, but unfortunately, this idea to play here and here is just stopped by bishop g8. And now it's going to be a lot more time consuming to try and kick this bishop away, in which this pawn has already rushed down the board, and it basically ends up happening that black ends up queening. Now at this moment, you might give up. But as I've taught my students repeatedly, you must never give up and you must fight till the final move. Let's see what happens. Stalemate. So at this point, we go back to the tournament standings. It's a draw, and all the players on 9 points, all they need is a win to get in tied position with not Olivier. But luckily, the tournament just ends before any of those players on 9 points can finish, and not Olivier wins the tournament. But before I go on to the tournament results, I just want to quickly say that this fight, to not give up, to put the king on the side of the board, the most precarious position for this king, to allow for a stalemate, is absolutely great fighting spirit from Leon. So a really valiant effort from both players trying to play for the win. And yeah, crazy tournament. So in the end, not Olivier wins with 11 points against Leon's 10. And almost catching up was Kooky Knight, and we ended up having 19 players, which was really great. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So there will hopefully be more Monster Night arenas. There will hopefully be more game recaps. I hope you guys learned something from this game recap. And yeah, I guess see you in the next video. Bye.